Anyone who's had a case of the Mondays knows how hard it can be to get out of bed and off to work. That effort pales in comparison to the North Carolina resident who would leave home at 3 a.m. every day to walk 6 miles to work and 6 miles back. In the midst of a harsh winter, one police officer took it upon himself to intervene. Keep watching to see how one kind act led to a chain of events that changed this hard worker's life for the better. Hello, story lovers. I'm Scott Leffler, and here is... This woman walked 12 miles a day to work until one officer changed her life. Before we move on, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and activate the notifications bell for new amazing videos. Jalesya Corbett was your average young woman looking for a job near her home in North Carolina. She decided to apply to a fast food chain called Bojangles. Since she needed the work to pay her bills, Jaylisa applied to numerous locations despite the fact that she didn't have a car. Whatever she had to do, she was determined to get to whatever spot would hire her. Fortunately, there was a Bojangles who did accept her application. Jaylisa wasn't bitter about the fact she'd have to be on her feet all day while at work. She was just grateful that the place was giving her a chance and would provide her with the funds needed to support herself. The one problem was that the location that moved her forward to the hiring process was 6 miles away. They were also going to need her to start early in the morning at 5 a.m. You won't believe how early Jaylisa had to get up to make it to work on time. While most workers were still fast asleep, Jaylisa would get up in time to leave her house by 3 a.m. If that weren't exhausting enough, she'd then embark on a 6-mile journey over the course of the next 2 hours just to start her 8-hour shift. Being in the food industry means staying on your feet for more or less the entire day. That's what Jaylisa would do before then walking another 2 hours home. Whether it was hot and humid in the summer or rainy and freezing in the winter, Jaylisa would keep walking to work. The long hours on her feet were enough to wear her out, but the weather was a whole other beast. She'd arrive to work soaked in either sweat or rain and put on a brave face to get through the day. All the while, Jaylisa knew it was only a matter of hours before she'd have to endure the long walk home. Coming up, see why one driver decided to pull over to help. It was during one of Jaylisa's long walks to work that someone took notice of the hard-working woman. She was making her way through the pouring rain, and a driver couldn't help but stop to offer some assistance. It's possible that other drivers had wanted to stop and ask if Jaylisa needed help before, but probably didn't want to frighten the woman. In this case, the driver knew he could offer some reassurance because helping citizens is his sworn duty. The person who pulled up beside Jaylisa was Nash County Sergeant Scott Bass. The woman knew that she hadn't done anything wrong, and the officer quickly confirmed that he just wanted to help. He'd seen her at an intersection and noticed her Bojangles uniform. Sergeant Bass knew that it was too cold for anyone to comfortably make it to the restaurant's location, so he stopped to ask Jaylisa if she'd like a ride to work in his police car. Jaylisa was happy to take the officer up on his offer to drive her to work. Though she'd now have time to kill before her shift began, she at least could do so relaxing. The drive would also give her feet extra time to recover before she had to get back up for work. If she was lucky, Jaylisa might even have a moment to get a quick nap in to have some extra energy for the walk home. Sergeant Bass's help didn't stop there. Sergeant Bass did a great thing taking Jaylisa to work, but he couldn't help but feel that it wasn't enough. He now knew that she was out there every morning making her way through the freezing cold. That's why the officer made an effort to get her a ride as often as possible. He told ABC 11, "It just kind of really weighed on me and bothered me that every day I gave her a ride, I just, for some reason, just talked to my wife about her." Sergeant Bass's wife isn't the only person he spoke to about Jaylisa. He also told his fellow officers about the commuting worker so that they could keep an eye out for her. Whenever possible, Sergeant Bass and his fellow workers would drive along Jaylisa's route to pick her up and take her the rest of the way to work. Though the team effort was sincere, they still had their own task to prioritize, so they couldn't always be there for her. After helping Jaylisa as much as he could with rides, Sergeant Bass came up with an idea. He figured that the best way to help her would be to get her a faster mode of transportation that she could use every day. The cop decided that a bike would be the most reasonable solution, but he still had to figure out how to attain one. He could try to raise money, but that might take too long. This company stepped in to help Jaylisa too. What the officer elected to do instead is reach out to Walmart and share Jaylisa's story. He picked out a bike that would be perfect for her and asked the retailer if they could do anything to make it more affordable. As with everyone Sergeant Bass had spoken to before, the Walmart team was touched by the story and the officer's goodwill. They decided to donate the bicycle completely free of charge so Jaylisa would have something to ride. After spending months and months walking to and from work with an occasional ride here or there, Jaylisa was exhausted. She pushed through because she had no other way to pay her bills. Her hard-working demeanor finally paid off when Sergeant Bass presented her with her new bike. By now, their story was making headlines, and they posed for photos with the two-wheeler. Though it wouldn't keep Jaylisa out of the cold, it would cut her commute significantly down. Jaylisa was immediately grateful for the bike and couldn't help but smile at all the people who showed they cared about her. Still, there was one little problem that she had to face. Jaylisa had never been taught how to ride a bike. With a determination like hers, though, you can bet she did her best to try and learn how to ride. Sergeant Bass even helped her get the hang of it and encouraged her to make use of the quicker alternative. As Sergeant Bass and Jaylisa posted about their story on social media, people started to take notice. Before long, the heartwarming story had gone viral, garnering them attention on a national level. Local news stations covered them first, and then national news wanted to feature the unlikely friendship. The story made it to CBS and was featured on YouTube as well. People couldn't get enough of this officer's excellent display of kindness and what it truly means to be a public servant. Next, this television personality actually invited them onto their show. The story was especially moving to one television personality in particular. Steve Harvey had Sergeant Bass and Jaylisa on his Facebook Watch series so they could share their story. They both were humbled to have gained so much attention. The 5-minute episode garnered over 300,000 reactions on Facebook and 22,000 comments. Steve noted how important it is to show police officers doing wonderful things for their community and praised Jaylisa for being an outstanding example of determination. Being on Steve Harvey's show didn't just get Sergeant Bass and Jaylisa's story more attention, it also gave them the opportunity to receive a round of applause from an audience. Though the pair had already received a ton of positive reinforcement online, there's nothing like being recognized in person. Steve Harvey was also able to express face-to-face how much he enjoyed their story and sees it as a source of inspiration and a bright spot worth sharing. While Jaylisa was on his show, Steve Harvey inquired about any good news that's happened at work. Of course, her employer caught wind of the story and had a newfound appreciation for their dedicated worker. Jaylisa shared that the people at Bojangles were so impressed with her commitment to her job that they transferred her to another location and gave her a promotion. The recognition was well-deserved, and now Jaylisa had even more income to support herself with. Coming up, you won't believe what Steve Harvey gifted to Jaylisa. Jaylisa's trouble getting to work all came down to financial woes. Despite not having enough cash to get a vehicle, she still remained a determined employee who was grateful just to be able to pay her bills. That kind of outlook was so touching to Steve Harvey that he presented her with a big gift. He told Jaylisa that she'd be receiving a check for $5,000. At last, she could buy a car. But that wasn't all. Steve Harvey didn't want Jaylisa spending all of her reward on used vehicles, so he got in touch with Capital Ford in Jaylisa's hometown in North Carolina. The company was so touched by their fellow resident's story that they gave her a brand new Ford Fiesta SE. When Steve Harvey revealed the car on his show, Jaylisa's jaw dropped. She and Sergeant Bass had a cheerful hug before Jaylisa went to sit in her new ride. Jaylisa was just trying to make ends meet, even if that meant walking 12 miles a day to and from her job. Sergeant Bass couldn't help but get involved, and the more he learned about this amazing woman, the more he wanted to share her story with those who could help. From getting a bike courtesy of Walmart, to a promotion at work, to a $5,000 reward and a brand new Ford Fiesta on the house, Jaylisa remained humble and grateful. Both Jaylisa and Sergeant Bass are inspiring examples of what can come of sincere effort. Did you like the story? Check out our channel for more.